Hi, my name's Adam Mansell. I'm here on behalf of the UK Fashion and Textile Association as part of UKFT's British Textile Week, in association with the Clothworkers Company and the Campaign for Wool. British Textile Week is all about celebrating the creativity and craftsmanship and innovation of the British textile industry. And I'm delighted to be here with Rob Charnock, and Rob's the chairman of Dugdale's. Rob, can you just introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. My name's Robert Charnock, and I am chairman and owner of Dugdale Brothers in Huddersfield, the last remaining independent cloth merchant in the centre of the town that, as we know, gave the world luxury worsted and woolen cloth. So that's my little intro.
Fantastic, thanks. Can you just give us a bit more information about Dugdale's? Because it's about 120 something years old, isn't it, as a company?
Yeah, we're 125 years old next year. Pray to goodness we get through there. And we've been based in the centre of the town all that time, starting on Railway Street, moving shortly afterwards in 1896 when the company was formed. We moved to Station Street briefly, and then to our current headquarters at 5 Northumberland Street. So we've been in the centre of the town all that time. And we've made our cloth in the town all that time. I think initially the two founding brothers worked very much on the old pre-industrialisation system of the clothier, where they would commission yarns locally, would weave locally, and would finish locally. Some of the cloths were then sold at the auctions on Cloth Hall, and a large collection was then placed into bunches, as we call them, swatch books, and distributed primarily to tailors round the north of England. Soon the reputation spread, then it went through the country. And Henry Percy, the key founder, he was a prodigious traveller, and he took his wares right the way across the globe. I think he started in Europe, obviously. He'd got a big presence in South America and America. They had warehousing in New York in the heyday, and also Buenos Aires,
Wow.
as well as Montreal. Yeah, they were a sizable merchant, but merchanting was very significant. I think when they were formed in 1896, there were over 100 credit drapers, merchants, and tailors in the town. They were all sort of amalgamated as one large group. So, and we're still there. We're still there, Adam. 125 years next year. So hopefully there'll be a bit of a celebration in cloth, and maybe a few bits on sticks, and a bit of Watney's parties, Tetley's actually. It'll be Tetley's, won't it?
Absolutely, excellent. I look forward to the invite. The role of a cloth merchant, not many people will understand the role of a cloth merchant. Can you just explain a bit more about how a cloth merchant works?
It's a difficult one, Adam, but I think what we do is we tend to go to the lengths that other people don't want to go to. It's pretty painstaking, with a close relationship with the spinner, which develops into a relationship with the brokers. I spent time in my formative years in the late 80s, early 90s with Australian wool growers, so I developed relationships with wool, with the wool industry. So we look at each level, we look at it right the way through. We look at wool, we look at yarn, we look at spinning, we look at weaving, we look at finishing, and see what we can add in to give our cloths the sort of signature, that bit of handwriting that will allow Huddersfield to come through in what we're producing. I've said it many times, Adam. I think Dugdale are probably, we're custodians of the trade that's been developed over centuries. So I think that's the key to it. We'll go to those painstaking lengths to make what some people could regard as quite ordinary. We make it extraordinary. We just put those added touches to it, whether they be in weaving, in construction, in design, in finish, just to make something that's quite unique, and that will underline the nature of cloth made in Huddersfield.
You've mentioned it several times now. I think I'm right in saying that all of your woolen cloths are made in the UK. Can you sort of give me an idea about why the British textile industry is still so important to you as a brand and as a merchant? And what are the fantastic bits about our industry that we should be talking about more?
Yeah, I think for talking about myself personally, and I'm pretty sure of the people in the Yorkshire. I mean, we make everything in our woolens and worsteds are all made in Huddersfield, Adam. I'm the I'm a fourth generation cloth worker. So I'm pretty loyal to those roots. My grandfather was a well-known manufacturer in the town. He ran Leroyd's and Kane Stewart. On the fine worsted end. So I've got to remain loyal to my roots. And I think for me, it's the fact that we're making, everything now. I think buyers, consumers are very savvy. People talk about, I hate these words, but ticking boxes and all that, so we're responsible. Our industry in Huddersfield, in Yorkshire, is a very responsible industry. We go to the nth degree to make sure that we're environmentally spot on, ethically sourced wool. The manufacturers we use, the conditions, the work conditions, the environment, they're recycling their own environment, as it were. So it's that responsibility to how we're actually producing the cloth that's very important. Going further on, how we perform it's very difficult to try and term the cloth without using the wrong words. Our cloth is characterful, it is robust, it's the archetypal wool is incredibly sustainable, and our version of cloths made in wool they are incredibly sustainable. I mean, we've done an exercise recently with a cloth that we call Ecology, which takes wool off British sheep. They kindly take the coat off for us. We process it and weave it, and it lands on a human back without any man. It's only got what God gave us. There's no chemicals, there's no dyes. It was pretty much to exaggerate what we've always done. We're a very sustainable, very responsible industry per se, and it was just a great showcase. That character and robustness when we're trying to direct it to the end user. It's creating, most of our cloth, Adam, is designed with a bespoke tailor or a hand couturier in mind. So, they've got a lot of work that needs to go into it. The hands are on the cloth all the time. It has to lie correctly. It has to be still when they're working with it. It has to allow them to put their shape and their emphasis into the cloth. So you really get that with an English cloth. You really get that ability to create something. It's not fashion. I think we've become, as British cloth producers, we've become very fashionable. There's a real move to Britishness, but I would say ours is style, right. And the cloths that we make are for the higher end of the industry, which is it's what we've always been about in the town, Adam.
The experiment you did using British wool, I mean, I think that's in the past. I mean, several hundred years ago, a huge percentage of the population was employed in the wool industry in the UK. Absolutely. And more recently, the view has always been that British grown wool is too coarse. And that's why, the move to merino from Australia and New Zealand, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. How's the handle from using British wool?
It's a bit limited at the moment, Adam. I mean, in fairness, it is, it's a woolen yarn that we're producing from it. So it's winter weight. It's making a jacketing, a coating. We have done experiments where we've moved British wool into a worsted spun. We did a project, and it's still ongoing, with Huntsman on Savile Row, with our original dreadnought serge, which is a heavy, sturdy 16, 17 ounce serge, and that was a British wool spun into a worsted. Again, when we're talking about sophisticated suiting, weight-wise, you've got to be somewhere, but for a plain weave cool wool, you're looking at 8, 9, 10 ounces. And then in your twills, you're getting 11, 12, 13 ounces. Our wool is not really fine enough for that. Hence we use Australian merino wool. So we're not there yet, but who knows? In my lifetime, we might be very buoyant in worsted yarn, worsted wool.
Well, I know you work with a whole range of clients, and you've mentioned a couple of them. And I know you work with some smaller bespoke tailors and things. A lot of the UKFT members are actually small businesses, micro SME type businesses. What would your advice be to a small fashion house, a small tailor type outfit, about how to work with UK manufacturing?
I think initially, we're all quite well broadcast now with social media and marketing. People kind of tend to know who we deal with and what we're all about. But I think if a designer's trying to create a unique story for themselves, then they've got to check out the story behind the company that's making the cloth. How's it made and what purpose does each cloth suit? Then they can build their own story around, around all the things we've talked about: sustainability, ethical, historical. We've got a lot of projects going on taking how we're producing cloth right back to pre-industrialisation. We've got our Dugdale houndstooth, which is black and gold, our company livery, which is hand woven. Raymond Ellis very kindly ran a project with us at the Textile Museum, and we're taking that a stage further. Possibly to the level where I'm looking at a couple of looms at the moment to buy. So it would never be commercial, Adam, but it would allow us to sort of take, when we get visitors, especially from abroad, we can take them right back to the basics of pre-industrialisation. We also work with pattern weavers who are weaving on, looms circa 1900, 1920. That's our story. Our story is the evolution of weaving cloth in Huddersfield. And I think a designer's got to check that story out and get a feel for it being genuine. On a practical side, I suppose they've got to look at, when they're starting out, it's difficult enough to get your profile. You've got your own marketing to do, so everything's got to be right to suit your story. Practical things like looking at minimums. The great thing about the cloth merchant is, because we're using commission spinners, commission weavers, commission finishers, we can kind of move around to make cloth to the best effect for that particular cloth and to get some good price indication. So the beauty is people can sample small amounts with us. They can then move through to larger amounts and through to bulk if necessary. But I think that for a designer starting out, get the story right. Does it suit what you're doing? And check the minimums. And are you going to develop a relationship with this company? Are they personable? We like to think that we're family owned, so we're personable. And I know, because I do a lot of talks to academies and universities, trying to just help guide some of these young kids who are coming into the industry. So we tend to be a bit more pastoral about things. Obviously, there's a price indication when you're doing smaller amounts, but it's the relationship that's key, Adam. It's that personal. Other British mills are much the same.
Yeah, I mean, it echoes a lot of the sort of advice that we give companies. I mean, I think there's a couple of strands to pull out of there, and I think the idea about understanding your manufacturer and what they do, and things like a teasel gig. So many people don't understand what a teasel gig is. You buy this most amazing, fantastic fabric that may have been woven on a brand new loom that cost the best part of £500,000, but to get that raised nap and that finish, you're actually using teasels. Teasels, these things in a machine, and understanding that and putting that into your story is incredibly important, and also the sustainability thing. I'm really glad you mentioned the fact that so many of our mills and our dyers and finishers operate to the best environmental standards there are, and beyond. We all know that one of the reasons that the industry, the woolen and worsted industry, is in Yorkshire is because of the quality of water. A lot of the finishers and the dyers are so careful about that as a resource, and as a small brand, understanding that and building that bit of your supply chain into your store is incredibly important.
It is, Adam, and I think just to jump in there, I feel, and I'm sure the people agree, ours is a very human story. It's about human endeavour, sacrifice, people really putting it out there and being innovative right from the very beginning. We've 125 years of, as I say, I'm the fourth generation cloth worker, and it does get handed down. It's something that we're trying to bring into how we're outward facing with people. There's a young guy who works for us at the moment whose father happens to be the head warper at C&J Antich, where we do a lot of very modern mill, very absolutely spot on with everything they do. So David is Chris Antich's lad. Chris was taught by Gordon Kay. Gordon Kay was the same age as my father. They worked together and they were taught by my grandfather. So there is this human story, and it goes on a lot further back than that, where it kind of gets pushed down. And as long as we don't lose that knowledge, we'll still have that reference to the past to be able to bring it to the future, because it's only going round again, isn't it, all the time? And that's kind of what we're touching into now, our genuine heritage cloths.
It's an interesting point. One of the problems that a lot of the spinners, weavers, knitters all find is how to attract young people into the industry. Now, you've obviously given an example there where there's a long-term family connection. But how would you advise difficult, but how would you talk to a mill, for instance, about making themselves a more attractive place for young people to work? And indeed for organisations like UKFT, what should we be saying to school kids, to people at universities, to make, everyone wants to be a fashion designer or wants to be the next head buyer for ASOS, but there are so many more roles in the industry. What should we be doing? How should we be talking about people, about the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, it's a real difficult one, and this is why I've sort of done this almost renegade talk to I come across kids at university who might not necessarily have the ability to go and be the next Alexander McQueen or whoever, but have skills, tailoring skills. I've seen a lot of kids go through fashion college who've actually got the hands-on skill to become a tailor. And it's sort of directing them down those lines and making them aware of, like the Tailoring Academy up in Macclesfield, with Brita's doing a great job. There's Victoria down here in London doing lab. They're great breeding grounds for talent. And I think it is a difficult one. It's one that perplexes me quite a lot. In our bit of the industry, the Textile Centre have been excellent with the likes of David Antage and with the Johnson boys at WT Johnson's, getting young people in, some really heartfelt apprenticeships that give that pride. When you walk around those places, it's a great working environment. There's the history and there's all the sort of mystique that goes with it in Johnson's. But what comes out the other end is very inspiring. And I think it's got to be inclusive. I think we've got to make, in our industry, we've got to make people aware of where the cloths go, who it's for, the significance. I mean, we're a very significant industry. We supply people who make garments for very famous people and the world's greatest designers. On the other side, on the fashion design side, I think that is, it's a very difficult, back to apprenticeships, but it's having this inclusive look and letting people know about the whole industry, that you don't just have to be a fashion designer. I've seen one or two. I saw one kid come out of Manchester Met years ago when I first started. He desperately wanted to be a tailor. His family were tailors, and he just didn't kind of have what it took. But he found that he was great at altering quite complicated garments. So he became a top alteration tailor, built a business, sold it on, and moved back to Cyprus with the family. So it's sort of, I think people's perspectives and ethos, ethics are changing. It's more about having autonomy, having a meaningful life, enjoying it. And there's so much talent out there, Adam, and it is perplexing when some of these people get missed. They kind of slip through the net, don't they? And I don't know yet what the answer is. I think things like you're doing with UKFT is just trying to, if we can touch something into people that they become inspired by, they will then go on and eke out something from that. It's definitely got to be more inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, this isn't meant as a shameless plug for UKFT at all, but there's a couple of projects that we're doing. One is a nationwide careers campaign where we've got a pop-up factory. It's a pop-up factory with sewing machines, industrial sewing machines, where kids can have a go at making things. Now, obviously, it's not a pop-up loom because they're quite difficult to do. But we're hoping we're hoping to reach over 50,000 kids over the next 3 years to just talk about the fact that manufacturing's still here. We've got another campaign called Made It, which is around going into universities and giving masterclasses on UK production, and then actually we'll also be offering people 5 students a year paid internships at a UK manufacturer to try and get that knowledge into the new talent that's coming through. But I think just to kind of wrap this up now, I'd be really interested on your views about where you see the industry going in the next 5-10 years, and what the developments are going to be, where the strengths are going to be.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, there's a definite move back to Britishness and back to English, in my little world, back to English cloth. it's quite interesting when people pick up on these things, and it feels like I've felt many times at Dugdale sometimes gets picked up. It's like a hidden gem that people have found. And I kind of have the feeling that our cloth industry is a little bit like that. You know, the Italians have dominated cloth production and fashion for a long time. And, you know, they make some incredible fabrics and they make some incredible garments. But this feeling for Britishness and everything that goes with it, I think is especially with as I say, the way people feel about responsibility. And it's, for me, Adam, it's the craft that we have. You know, I like to think that we are, I used this term once, we're like a boutique merchant. You know, ours is more the craft. We don't look at the commodification of what we do. It's that craft. And I think that's where the industry can come through and shine, is doing these things that are different, that are meaningful, that are absolutely steeped in our history, and that are still significant today. I think the other thing that's definitely coming to the fore, I think, is the collaborative, is doing collaborations with people and broadcasting what we actually do. You know, UKFT are doing a fabulous job at promoting all the different aspects of what goes, you know, to making a garment. And I think I see the tough times at the moment, as we know, we won't talk about just how tough things are, but there's definitely some ingenuity. Out of adversity can come some great things. And yes, I think we're all, I talk to people in the industry all the time, and we're all prepared for this downscale, but we've been hit hard over the last few decades. We've been hit very hard. I remember when I started in the mid 80s, you know, it was distressing at times, but we got through. Creativity, collaborations, showcasing what we do. And as I say, the industry's got to sort of rally round. You mentioned cloth workers earlier, and I think they're very significant at picking up on the fact that there is this wave, this move back to, some of us have been here for 125 years and more. Yeah. We've got to make it current, and we need help to do that. You know, we've all flown our own flags for too long. I think collectively, by becoming more inclusive, we can come back and we can become a compelling force. If you look around the exhibitions, you know, I noticed at Milan and at PV, there's a definite hunger for the creativity with the British mills now. You know, the glamour and the glitz of the other producing countries is great, and it's nice to see, and it's good to be. But when we're doing what we do, there's a real integrity with it, and you can see that comes through to the buyers, the designers, and they're more informed and they want more knowledge. So I think, I mean, touch wood, pray to the good Lord. I think it's a good time. We have to be prepared for, you know, cutting our coat according to the cloth that's there. But I think coming out of the other side are some wonderful days ahead.
Fantastic. Rob, thank you so much indeed for your time. It's been really interesting to talk to you. We've talked about WT Johnson's, Paul Johnson, who's the chief exec of WT Johnson, is one of our other interviewees later on. So if you want to understand a bit more about the finishing process, do come back and watch. But for all our other resources, do head over to ukft.org and follow #British Textile Week on social media for more interviews, trends and tales from the UK textile industry. So Rob, once again, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.